Hey, everybody, how we doing? Nice lazy Saturday afternoon. So I thought I'd take time to review a cigar I've been wanting to do for a while. Just hadn't had a chance to do it. So this is I'm not the biggest Gurkha guy in the world, but this is the Gurkha Hatfield and Company, and this is actually a bourbon infused cigar. Comes in they call it a glass tube, but probably more plastic than glass. I don't know. But it comes wax sealed, pretty cool deal. So, yeah, I've heard some good things about this. This was a Christmas present from my stepdad. Really cool Christmas present. Come with 5 cigars and 2 rocks glasses. So it was a really nice gift. We're going to pair it today with a favorite of mine. You can tell because there is not much left. Old Forester 1910. I love these Old Forester series. This series here. I forget what they call it now. I love it so much I forget the name, but there's a series of them. But they're really good, really good. This is the Old Fine Whiskey. It's not my favorite in the series. There's one that's 115 proof that is just fantastically delicious. I think that's called Prohibition style, if I'm not mistaken. But it's Old Forester, so really good. So, anyhow, let's open this up real quick and get an initial whiff of it. So, really cool, just a nice pull tab, I guess. Opens up really well with some tape. Yeah, we'll see if we get the case open. Yeah. Wow. Interesting smell. And that's one thing I had heard about these. Really bourbony. Vanilla-y kind of bourbon oak. Vanilla oak. So anyhow, let's get this cut up, lit, and we'll see how it transitions. Pour a dram. We'll be back. See you in a few. Okay. So the pre-light draw was really boozy. Really boozy. Now that it's lit, a really dry taste, like a dry oak, and that sweet vanilla that I was smelling is not. I don't taste that. It's not there, but it's got a good kind of an earthy flavor. There's some hint of bourbon there, but let's see how it develops. Let's see how it develops. Initial light. That's just a first impression. So let's get in the first third and see what we got. We'll be back. So we're not quite into the first third, but you know what? Sometimes it's boring sitting here by yourself trying to get the first third. So you're going to sit here with me for a few minutes. I will tell you, interesting. So I goofed up in the opening when I told you this was a part of a set. Yeah, it's Whiskey Rose series. I couldn't remember that. But it is a 4 bottle set. I have had 3 of the 4. The 1870 original batch is the one I haven't had. But I've had the 1910 Old Fine Whiskey. The 1920 Prohibition style is definitely my favorite. And then the 4th one, if I can find it here again, I just had it. The 4th one was 1897 bottled in bonds, and I've had that, and it's pretty good. But this Old Forester, smooth, smooth, smooth. The 1910 is really nice, 93 proof. So it's got really good, almost overly sweet. And I like sweet bourbon, so if you know me, I have a sweet tooth, so I like sweet things. So I like the caramel and the vanilla in really heavy doses in the bourbon. Some people like the more oaky, drier bourbon. I like the more sweet, and this kind of scratches that sweet itch. Now, cigar's burning pretty evenly. Interestingly enough, what I'm getting from the cigar, and it's supposedly bourbon infused, is really really oaky. almost like if you were going to smoke an oak stave, maybe really dry oak flavor. But when you pair it a little bit with the bourbon, boy, they're onto something here. It's a really nice little combo because the Old Forester just gives it that little sweetness. There's a little vanilla touch here that I'm picking up, but when you hit that Old Forester with it and do it in combination like this is kind of meant to be done the way I understand it. Again, I'm no expert. There's something to be said for pairing these two. They actually pair probably better than a lot of things I've had. I'm getting this really neat almond caramel kind of flavor now that I wasn't getting before. So definitely a booze, almost like, you know what this tastes like? It almost tastes like hazelnut coffee creamer. It is that good. Really rich. Definitely coffee creamer. Very interesting. So anyhow, let's see how this develops. We'll smoke it down some more, try to get to the second, third. Won't sit here and bore you. It'll make the video 50 minutes if I talk for 10 minutes at each third and then an open and a close. But wow, interesting. Interesting. Now I'm sure you could smoke this without drinking bourbon with it, but I think it kind of meant to be like hot chocolate and marshmallows or something like that. They just kind of go together. Much better when you sip the bourbon first. It adds to the cigar, without question. And in most cases, that is true anyway. But in this case, definitely. See, now I'm getting the drier oaky or hazelnut, but I'm not getting that sweet rush that the bourbon was kind of infusing in there. But anyhow, let me jump off here. I'll be back. We'll talk about the second, third. This is really enjoyable. Surprising. I'm not a big Gurkha guy. When I'm in a cigar store and I'm in the Gurkha aisle, I tend to, I just don't pick them up. The Gurkhas, to me, the one cool thing about them is, man, they produce smoke like nothing else. They are smoke bombs, and this one is keeping with that Gurkha tradition. And they have cool bands. I do love the Gurkha band. It is a really cool band. But other than that, I'm just not. I don't gravitate toward them. I don't reach for them. They're not my number one. They're not even in my top five. It's not something I'm going to grab. You know, if I'm going into a B&M, I'm headed to the Fuente and the Padron section, and that's where I'll spend the majority of my time, because those are my favorites. But something to be said for this one. Let's get in the second, third, and we'll be back. Hey, everybody. So we're back pretty close to the second, third. I'm not very scientific when it comes to this thing. So, as I reach for something. Originally, I told you I thought this was a plastic tube. I've changed my opinion. It's definitely glass. Definitely a glass tube. So, changed my opinion on that. So, I'm still getting good flavor. This is an interesting deal because, and more so with this cigar than any cigar I think I've smoked in my life, this to me needs to be paired to really bring it to life. As a bug is flying around, I don't know if you saw that or not, but there's cigars where you could certainly ruin the cigar or enhance it with what you pair it with. And there's a lot of time and videos out there if you want to search that kind of stuff that talks about that kind of what to pair with a certain cigar. And this one was meant to be paired with bourbon. When I smoke it, and this was my opinion in the first third, it's going to remain in the second third. If you would have handed me this cigar, and I'm going to take the band off and try not to drop this ash, so I don't want to smoke the band. Gurkhas do have cool bands. That's the one thing I do like about them. But if you were to just hand me this cigar and I was going to drink it with water or Coke or not pair it at all, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be a huge fan. Okay, I still got a little ways to go to make that determination. But as it sits right now, the cigar by itself, with no bourbon on the lips or tongue, still dry. I'm picking up definitely hints of booze and that dry oak still. Like I said before, almost like not as bad as smoking maybe an oak stave. I've never smoked an oak stave, but what I would perceive that it would taste like. Maybe not as bad as that, but definitely different. But when you take a sip of the Old Forester, just a sip, then you pair it with the cigar. That to me brings the flavor out of both of them. And maybe I just got lucky and paired the right two. Don't know. Sometimes it's trial and error. Like I said, you can pair some stuff and make it really bad and ruin the cigar too, because you take away and you'll mute the flavors that the cigar intended. But this cigar was bourbon infused, was meant to be smoked with bourbon. When I let it linger and it finishes, again, I get that really good coffee creamer, caramely, nutty kind of coffee creamer, like a caramel hazelnut kind of creamer. It's really good, which is really good. So we'll see if it transitions. It hasn't had any big swings in transition, in my opinion. It's been pretty constant since light. It's been pretty much the drier flavor with the oak, a little bit of booze you can taste in the background playing around. And I don't get the cigar by itself, the vanilla or the caramel that I smelled in the tube. The vanilla was really strong in the tube. I don't get that just out of the tobacco. But when you pair it just a touch, man, it just brings them both really to life. What I think will be interesting, Burn's been really even. Construction on the cigar's been pretty good for a Gurkha. Not a Gurkha guy. What I think will be interesting, I have four more of these, would be to try one with maybe just a cup of coffee or maybe just a water or something, and to see how much that changes this. You know, is this truly, as it sits, I would tell you, I haven't tried it with anything else, right? But as it sits, you probably need to try this with bourbon, because it's really good when you do that. So maybe I'll try another review of this with just maybe a cup of coffee and see if it changes my opinion. But I enjoy the flavor. And see, when you just smoke that tobacco and you don't pair it with the bourbon, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. It's not as sweet. The finish isn't as creamy. It's a more dry taste, a more wood oak taste, bourbon-esque. You know, there's some bourbons you can get into that'll be very dry and very oaky. This Old Forester's not one. Like I said earlier, it's kind of a sugar bomb. So maybe that is the combination here, is pair a sweeter bourbon with this Gurkha. And maybe that's what I hit on by just pure blind luck. I just was looking at the bourbons in there, and the Old Forester just spoke to me. So that's the one I grabbed. So anyhow, let's smoke it down to the final third. We'll come back with a rating on the cigar, I use my cigar app and just give it a up to 5 stars. It's not going to be a 5 star. I don't think I've reviewed any 5 stars, but it won't be five. But we'll compare it and see how it played out with burn and draw and appearance and construction and all that good stuff. So we'll be back in the final third. Catch you in a minute. All right, everybody, home stretch, final third. So I'm probably not going to nub this cigar because it's hot as the dickens out here, and it's just a good cigar. It's a good cigar, not a great cigar. So I'm not going to sit out here and burn my fingers. So let's get to it. How do we rate this thing? So when I got to the final third, not much changed. Maybe a tick of leather I pick up every now and then on the draw, but it's still oak. It's still got some booze that's lingering in the tobacco. I can't quite put my finger on it because I'm not the savant that knows all the nuances of every tobacco leaf and every taste. The cigar by itself, okay. It's dry. And what I mean by dry, it's like drinking a dry wine, like a Chardonnay. It leaves that dry taste in your mouth. It's very woody. It's got that oak taste. A little bit of booze on the finish. Can't put my finger on it that it's bourbon, but it's there. And just a hint maybe of leather now. Very, very faint. Not crazy. Now, when you pair it with the bourbon, it changes the whole doggone thing. Both the bourbon and the cigar come alive when they're paired together. So I think, man, that's just good when they're paired. I've had some good pairings, but this one's really, really good. I think the Old Forester, it's a sweeter bourbon. I think that'll pair well with it if you grab this stick. Try a sweeter bourbon, but hey, you do you. Try what you want to try. But man, I get a smooth coffee, cream, caramel, hazelnut when I pair these two together. I don't know where the hell the hazelnut comes from because it's not in the tobacco and it's darn sure not in the bourbon, but it's coming from somewhere. So when the two mix, it's the closest I can get to explaining it. It might not be a hazelnut, but it's what it tastes like to me, excuse me. So let's get to it. The draw was a 3. It was good. No problems with the draw. The appearance was a 4. I thought it was really cool. Wrapper looked good. Was well constructed. The glass tube was cool with the wax, the whole presentation. I grade all that on the appearance. So I thought that was cool. That's a 4. The burn has been really sharp the whole time, so I gave that a 4. The aroma's been a 3. It's good. It's a cigar aroma. And the taste, when paired with bourbon, I rock that out as a 4. Excuse me, which would come to 3.5 stars. Now, if I took that taste by itself, I would probably be more of a 2, which would probably drop it down to just about a 3-star. In fact, let me see if I changed that to 2 and saved it, it would be 3 1/10 of a star. But I'm going to leave it at 4 stars because I really believe if you pair it with the bourbon like it's kind of intended to, I think it comes alive. At least to me it did. And it's, whether it's a novelty, could be, when you get into some of this infused stuff and this different stuff, it's not your normal cigar stuff that your traditionalists might turn their nose up at this. I think it's worth it. That Old Forester, boy. If you don't know about Old Forester, you better get on that Whiskey Row series. 1910 and 1920 especially. Fantastic. Fantastic bourbon. Smoky. Gurkha's put out. It's like the garage is on fire. Jeez Louise. Gurkha's will throw some smoke now. That's the one thing I've known that I've experienced with Gurkhas. So 3.5. It's good. Really good. Really cool idea that they had. They paired with Hatfield and Company in Kentucky to put this out. So um, it's a niche thing. Um, you're catering to the bourbon drinkers, which bourbon is just fire. Read a cool article the other day. Buffalo Trace, they cannot even keep up production of just Buffalo Trace. They're investing just millions and millions and millions of dollars into futures because to get a good bourbon you have to age that bourbon, and whether it's 5, 8, 10, 12, however you want to age the bourbon, everything's a little bit different. But to get that age you can't cheat, and there are some companies out there that are trying to cheat it and pressurize it and do some things to cheat Father Time. It just doesn't work. You have to let it sit. And that stupid fly's been here the whole time. He's been on YouTube. He's probably got his own channel by now. But anyhow, you just can't cheat it. So back to the Buffalo Trace story. They're really, and here it's funny, and Mrs. Buckeye, she laughs about it. We go to Michigan to visit her family, and everybody, even the corner stores, have Buffalo Trace. You come down here, and Buffalo Trace is as rare as Pappy Van Winkle is. You just don't see it in North Carolina in very big quantities. And when you do, they put it behind the counter with all the other expensive and limited release stuff like it's some kind of a big deal. And it's really, to me, not that great of a bourbon. It's good, but it's not excellent or great. If you're talking Buffalo Trace and that distillery, go with Eagle Rare. You're going to be much better off than just the Buffalo Trace brand. It's more of a lower level bourbon, but I digress. If you stuck to the video, thank you. You could tell it's hot out here. Boy, I'm sweating. I appreciate y'all as always. Hopefully you're having a great weekend. Gonna work on my project tomorrow, so it's getting to be 6 o'clock. It's late for us old people, so probably time for dinner and bed before long. Jeez Louise. Um, but anyhow, I'll be working on some projects tomorrow. But there you have it. That was Gurkha, the bourbon infused, and I'm calling it bourbon infused. While I gotcha, if you're still with me, just bear with me. Just let me look up and see, is it truly bourbon infused? I guess I should have done my homework beforehand. I believe it to be bourbon infused. It's a collaboration between Hatfield and Company. Like I told you, it's a match made in heaven or Kentucky. To say we enjoy bourbon around these parts would be an understatement. So when we heard Gurkha is getting a bourbon cigar, I nearly fell out of my chair, and that didn't disappoint. Collaboration between Kentucky-based Hatfield and Company and Gurkha. These premiums are an absolute pinnacle of cigar perfection. Don't know about that. Break the wax seal on these high-end glass tubes, and your nose will be immediately greeted with warm bourbon notes. I do agree with that. And earthy cigar goodness, agree. To make these cigars even more unique, each comes with a different wrapper. That's just if you get the Churchill or the Toro. I had the Toro. The Toro features a silky smooth Connecticut shade wrapper, which is usually I'm not the biggest fan of. And it pairs up nicely with a rye heavy pour. I disagree. Well, I didn't have a rye heavy pour. It poured up nicely with a sweeter bourbon. On the Churchill, you find a Connecticut broadleaf Maduro that promises to be the perfect favorite of your top shelf booze. So there you have it. And it comes in the Cask Collection blend. It's a really cool gift set. You can get it on Cigars International if you look for it. It's called the Gurkha American Cast Blend Collection. Comes with 5 of these cigars in 2 rocks glasses that have Gurkha on it, if that's your thing. Or you could just buy them, I believe. Yeah, they come in. They ain't cheap. Ooh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, they're popping off close to $10 a stick for these. So, yeah, I don't know. At that price point, if you're a bourbon fan and you're going to drink bourbon with it, it's worth it. If you're not a bourbon fan and you're just going to smoke the cigar as a standalone and you don't care about bourbon and you're not going to pair it with bourbon, It's not worth it. How's that? That's fair. I think that's fair. But that's where I'm at with it, man. That's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with it. I'm happy with that review. So, be interesting now to reach back and talk to my stepdad and see how he didn't tell me his opinions. He smoked two. He did one with a bourbon and one with a cup of coffee, and compared his notes. So I'm going to probably do one with a cup of coffee later and just see how our notes kind of compare. It's what's cool about this hobby is everybody's different. Everybody's going to taste something different. And some people think they taste things that they may not, but that's another story. That's another story altogether. That's when Mrs. Buckeye starts talking about rainbows and unicorn farts and tasting all kind of weird, this was a mandarin orange growing on the east side of the shaded valley of the Yanganese River and blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's people that'll go that depth. But me, I keep it simple. I keep it simple. It's wood, it's earth, it's nutty, it's caramel, it's vanilla. It's the big ones, right? If you didn't know about it, now you do. It's a really, really good one. Good thing I got another bottle in there. If you don't have that one in your shelf, do yourself a favor. This video ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would be, so thank you if you watched it. Appreciate you as always. If you've had Old Forester 1910 Old Fine Whiskey, or if you've had the Gurkha Bourbon Collection that they paired with Hatfield and Company, would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a link or a note below deck. Tell me what you thought of them. If you paired something together, what'd you think? So, pair it with something. Pair it with something. God, that's so good paired. Really good paired. I will say this, and I'll close with this. By far, the cigar bourbon pairing with this cigar and bourbon, I have not found a pairing yet as good, and that includes pipe tobacco and cigars. I have not found a pairing as good as this. So that says something. That says something. So anyhow, folks, be well. Take care of each other. Wash your damn hands. We'll see you next time, everybody.